Good evening. I will call to order the meeting of the Chautauqua County Legislature on August 28th, 2024. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony.
Here.
Mr. Bankowski.
Here.
Mr. Buchanan.
Here.
Mrs. Gustafson. Mr. Harmon. Mr. Heiser.
Here.
Mr. Johnson is absent. Mr. Landy.
Present.
Mr. Larson.
Here.
Mr. Nelson.
Here.
Mr. Nebel.
Here.
Ms. Parker.
Here.
Mr. Pavlak.
Present.
Mr. Penhollow.
Here.
Mr. Proctor.
Here.
Mr. Scudder.
Here.
Ms. Vanstrom.
Here.
Mr. Wilfong.
Here.
Chairman Shagnon.
Here.
There are 18 members present and 1 member absent. There is quorum.
Thank you. And now we will have the prayer and pledge of allegiance by Legislator Buchanan.
Dear Lord, as we gather here today for this meeting, we seek your divine guidance and wisdom. May your radiant light shine upon us, illuminating the path of understanding and cooperation. We humbly request your presence to help us make decisions that resonate with your divine will and to grant us the discernment to navigate the complexities of our discussion. We place our unwavering trust in you, knowing that with your guidance, this meeting will be profoundly meaningful and our efforts will bear fruit. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and now I will accept a motion regarding the minutes of the last legislature meeting on July 24th. We have a motion to accept the minutes as presented by Legislator Bankowski and a second by Legislator Vanstrom. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. And that brings us to the first privilege of the floor. Members of the public may comment on any subject relating to any local law, resolution, or motion appearing on the agenda. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes, and comments representing a group shall be limited to 5 minutes. Anyone wishing to address the first privilege of the floor, please introduce yourself.
My name is Tara Warren. I am here on behalf of Callie's Crusade and the proclamation tonight of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. In 2013, my daughter Callie was diagnosed with leukemia, in which it ended up taking her life in 2015. We created a foundation in honor of her, and as we have in past years, I just want to thank everyone here for taking time out of their day, out of their evening, but also recognizing this month as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike LeBaron. My wife is Andrea. She's not here. She's at open house tonight. And we live near Kennedy. Our son Nolan was diagnosed with leukemia on August 9th, 2022. He is still under the care of Roswell Park, and he has received chemotherapy every single day for the past 24 and a half months. On behalf of all oncology parents, we are grateful for this legislature and county executive to make this proclamation recognizing September as Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month. Gold is the color in September that is aimed to bring awareness that cancer strikes children. I welcome everyone tonight to visit sometime a Facebook page called Shine Gold. It is an awesome organization that shares this chamber's goal of bringing awareness to this repugnant disease. So we all leave this meeting today and think, okay, we made the proclamation, I'm now more aware. But is there anything I can do? I can give you 2 answers. First, the one thing with children with leukemia and their families crave is your blood. We want your blood. We want your platelets. These are the lifelines for the children, and oncology families know what a blood and platelet shortage looks like. The 12th floor at Oshai Children's Hospital and the Children's Clinic at Roswell Park need about 40 to 50 units of blood a month to meet the needs of these kids. My hope is everyone who leaves this chamber tonight will consider donating blood and/or platelets on a regular basis. I hope the legislatures will encourage your constituents to do the same. Second, sometimes chemotherapy does not cure leukemia patients. Sometimes they relapse. Thus, many times a bone marrow transplant is the only option. To get a bone marrow transplant, a patient needs to find a matching donor, which is not easy. I encourage all to visit the website, Be the Match, and join the registry. It's easy. You'll be sent a kit in the mail, you swab your cheek, and you send it back. In the months and years to come, you may be the match, the person that saves a child's life. I know a Western New York family whose child has recently received a transplant, and the donor was a college student from California. And thank God for her. So again, I want to thank this chamber for the opportunity to speak and its proclamation to raise awareness. If we are aware that when a child and her family gets this dreaded diagnosis, the only possible cure is to inject your child's body with multiple poisons on a daily basis for a long period of months and years, that these toxins will make them physically suffer like you can't believe. They will crush your child mentally, rob them of their childhood, they can bankrupt you, and bring your family to the brink of emotional collapse, and it punishes every aspect of your life. Then, we residents of Chautauqua County may be willing to donate blood periodically and join the bone marrow registry. Lastly, these are words that I live by. You never know how strong you are until strength is your only choice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm on behalf of Callie. My name is Lucas Gibbons. I was diagnosed with retinoblastoma at the age of 3, and I was in the hospital for a solid year in a couple months, and it brought my mom and family through a lot of trouble, and Tara helped me out with helped my family out with money, especially financially and fundraising.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the first privilege of the floor? Seeing no one, Olivia, take us away.
There are no veto messages from County Executive Wendell from the July 24th, 2024 meeting. Our office has received the 3 communications as listed on the agenda. If you would like a copy of any of these items, please let our office know. And next, we have a proclamation titled Declaring the Month of September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, requested by Legislator Proctor and County Executive Wendell.
So I would invite the county executive to come down and present the proclamation.
Also, if I can have Tara and everyone who spoke, please come on up and join us. So each year this gets a little harder. Mike was a colleague of mine, along with Tara was a former student, a colleague. I had Mike's son, Nolan, in school. So this does hit hard to all of us. But the Office of County Executive, Chautauqua County, New York, whereas childhood cancer is a leading cause of death by disease for children in the United States, and whereas 1 in 285 children in the United States will be diagnosed by their 20th birthday, and whereas in the United States, 46 children per day, or 16,790 children per year, are diagnosed with cancer, and whereas the average age of diagnosis is only 6 years old, and whereas according to the New York State Cancer Registry from 2015 to 2019, there was an annual average of 998 cases of cancer in youths aged 0 to 19 in the state, and an annual average of 7 cases of cancer in youth in Chautauqua County. And whereas in the United States, 80% of all childhood cancer patients are diagnosed with late and with metastatic disease. And whereas on average, there's been a 0.6% 6% increase in incidence per year since the mid-1970s, resulting in an overall incidence increase of 24% over the last 40 years. And whereas over the last 30 years, only 6 new drugs have been developed to specifically treat childhood cancer. And whereas, depending on the type of cancer, pediatric cancer treatments can take several months or even years, taking an enormous toll on children as well as creating emotional and financial hardships for families trying to do the best they can to support their child's battle with cancer. And whereas hundreds of not-for-profit organizations at the local, state, and national level, including Callie's Crusade, are helping children with cancer and their families cope through educational, emotional, and financial support. And whereas researchers and healthcare professionals work diligently, dedicating their expertise to treat and cure children with cancer. And whereas too many children are affected by this deadly disease, and more must be done to raise awareness, further research and treatment, and find a cure. Now, therefore, we, Paul M. Wendell Jr., Chautauqua County Executive, Pierre E. Chagnon, Chairman of the Chautauqua County Legislature, and Martin J. Proctor, Legislator, District 18, do hereby proclaim the month of September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in Chautauqua County, and we urge all residents and community organizations to come together to raise awareness about pediatric cancer, honor the courageous children who fight their cancer, and remember the children who are taking from us much too soon, and support initiatives to help find better treatments and end cancer. In witness whereof, we have hereto set our hands and caused the seal of the great county of Chautauqua to be affixed this 28th day of August, 2024, signed by myself, Martin J. Proctor, Legislator, District 18, and Pierre E. Chagnon, Chairman, Chautauqua County Legislature. Do you want to say anything?
No, I just want to thank these, Tara and Mike, for coming down and speaking, and Lucas did a really good job. And just like Mike said, if we can go out into the public and make more people aware and join those websites and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you, PJ.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
And next on our agenda, we have a public hearing. So I will now open the public hearing regarding a potential application for 2024 Community Development Block Grant funding through the New York State Office of Community Renewal and the uses of said funding regarding the Bustye Tap House. Stephanie, please introduce yourself and take us away.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Nick, Special Projects Coordinator for the Chautauqua County Department of Planning and Development. So Chautauqua County is planning to assist the Bustye Tap House in applying for a $100,000 grant from the New York State Office of Community Renewal, NYS OCR, and the Community Development Block Grant, that's a mouthful, that is housed underneath the NYS OCR. So it's a CDBG grant. The county will be the applicant, but there's no county money involved. Credit will administer the grant, and the proceeds would go, sorry, not proceeds, I don't know why I put that in there. The grant money would go towards fixtures, furniture, and equipment, and working capital for their parking lot and back property renovations, which would increase parking and efficiency, as well as increase capacity and seating, and provide outdoor entertainment space. Any questions? Yes.
The Economic Development Committee meeting, under some questions from you-know-who, it turns out that this is kind of new ground for the county to be the applicant. The town of Bustye could be the applicant on behalf of their own business and taxpayer. I realize Bustye is a small, impoverished town, even though it has Cummins Engine, it has Walmart, it has the Chautauqua Mall, it has 3 new car dealers that used to be in the city of Jamestown. It wasn't clear why the county was getting in the business of being the applicant, and it sounded like Last year, there might have only been 2 or so of these applications. I don't know how a business finds out about the county doing this, and I never got a clear answer as to somebody, a consultant, whatever, somebody is getting a piece of the $100,000 if it comes through. Who is that and how much?
Yes, that's a good question. And the county does actually apply for CDBG grants on behalf of organizations or other municipalities. So I also oversee our microenterprise grant, which is a CDBG grant. So for this grant, it is my understanding that Credit would be getting a consultant fee. I don't know how much it is. I don't know anything further than that. But there is administration fees that go along with the grant because there are a lot of administrative processes that CDBG requires. So that takes staff time, that takes resources from Credit, and the county essentially is the applicant because we're a government agency and we can be.
But Bust-I could have done it as well.
Bust-I could have, but more than likely they do not have someone who can write a grant of this size.
And I think we also learned that under law, this service by the county is not available to the city of Jamestown or the city of Dunkirk. Is that right?
No. So they are entitlement communities, and the reason that they are excluded from certain CDBG funding is because there is other specific funding designated for entitlement communities.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Hi. Good thing.
I'd just like to say that I think
Please step to the microphone, Mr. Toda.
Anthony Toda, Clifton Avenue in Jamestown. I'd just like to say that maybe the legislature should consider the the question mark as far as who gets what, how the money is divided into the various people that run the program, et cetera, before you make a vote on this. So I think it'd be a good idea for the legislator to know the bottom line, where the money's going to before you make a vote. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sure. As stated presently, the money would be going to, previously, I apologize, the money would be going to the Bust-I Tap House. It would be their grant, but it would be administered through Credit, who would have administration fees taken out of that grant. I can't tell you what those fees would be, but I can give you information on who you can contact if anybody is interested to know further.
Okay.
Yes.
So right today, we're actually just okaying the public hearing. Will you have those figures for us when the public hearing is here? You'll have the administrative costs for us
Yes, when we
beforehand?
Yes, before we come in front of you to do an amendment or
Presentation or
a
something?
presentation,
Okay.
whatever it is, to apply for the grant, to actually apply for it, which has not been done yet. We need approval for that, and then during that time period, we would have all of the financial numbers for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to clarify, Dave, this is the public hearing we're doing right now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's the case. When will we be getting those figures?
So it will be, so this is just the public hearing.
Okay.
We still have to submit a, why can't I think of what it's called? A resolution, thank you. We still have to submit a resolution to apply, to actually apply for the grant, to submit the application. So at that point, we will have figures for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Any other questions or anyone else wishing to address the public hearing? Legislator Nebel.
Just one, yeah, thank you. Stephanie, the fact that the county is applying for this grant, does that give more weight to the grant than, say, if the town of Bust-I or the Tap House applied for the grant?
It
Do
is
you
hard
think?
to say. Because the county has received CDBG funding in the past and has done things with it that have been successful, more than likely, it would weigh a little more for the county to do this grant instead of the village of Bustye.
Well,
But-
the town of Bustye or
Bustye.
the Bustye Tap House?
Okay, yes, or the
Okay.
Bustye Tap House. I don't think the Bustye Tap House actually can apply on their own. They would need a municipality to apply for them.
Okay. But you think that because it's the county, it should carry somewhat more weight?
I do think
Okay.
so. As I said, because we have been successful with CDBG grants in the past, and their projects that we've used the funding for.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else to speak to the public hearing? Questions? Mr. Toda, you have another question?
Sorry to bother you again, but I'm just wondering, has there been any other applicants within the county for this grant? Who they are? I'm sure there should have been more, or have they been made aware of the grant? Thanks.
So we currently have a CDBG grant through the county that is administered through Cody, and that has been publicized there. This is a public meeting now, so anybody can find out about it. It's a New York State grant. It's not something that the county is like keeping secret and sending secret messages to. It's public knowledge.
Go ahead, Legislator Penhall.
Is it common practice that any grants administered either through the IDA, the CDG, or Critic, there's always administrative fees that are paid to, for example, the IDA. So that this is not uncommon. This is normal.
Yes, this is a normal practice that we do for lots of different kinds of organizations. And Critic does outreach for other organizations for funding assistance, and that's essentially what the IDA is for, is to boost our economic development here in the county.
I can't imagine anybody wouldn't want to go forward with this and support this. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak to the public hearing? Seeing no one, thank you, Stephanie, and I will
Thank you.
close the public hearing. Olivia, take us away.
Next, renew and amend resolution number 129-24, North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District Plant Capacity Study Grant, authorization and appropriation of local match.
So I would entertain a motion to renew Resolution 12924. Legislator Bankowski? Thank you. And Legislator Scudder seconds. Any discussion on the motion to renew Resolution 12924? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? And it is renewed. And now I would entertain a motion to amend Resolution 12924 to the document that was placed on the desks. Legislator Parker.
Make a motion to amend number 12924.
Thank you. And a second by Legislator Vanstrom. Any discussion on the motion to amend Resolution 12924? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now, discussion on Resolution 12924 as amended. Are there any questions, comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Okay. Resolutions 215-24, authorize agreements with municipalities for landfill use.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
216-24, amend 2024 capital project account parks.
Any comments or any questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
217-24, adjust budget for Mayville parking lot reconstruction.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
218-24, amend 2024 budget for North County Industrial Water District Number 1.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
219-24, authorize amendment to the agreement between the NCLSD and the Town of Chautauqua for sewage treatment services, 19-28-03.
Are there any questions or any comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
220-24, acceptance of FAA funds to purchase ARFF testing equipment at the Chautauqua County Jamestown Airport.
Are there any comments, any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? We have one nay vote. It is carried.
221-24, accept FAA and NYSDOT funds to rehabilitate runway 1331 pavement and reconstruct runway 1331 lighting and signage design.
Any comments, any questions, any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? We have one nay vote. It is carried.
222-24, authorize public hearing on Office 46 lease agreement at the Chautauqua County Jamestown Airport.
Any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
223-24, accept FAA and NYSDOT funds to reconstruct terminal building design.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? One nay vote. It is carried.
224-24, transfer American Rescue Plan, ARPA, spending plan budget from 2023 to 2024 County Clerk's Office.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
225-24, amend 2024 budget for Probation Department for DCJS Pretrial Service Award.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
226-24, amend 2024 budget for Office of the Sheriff.
Any questions or discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
227-24, authorize agreement with Clymer Central School District for School Resource Officer.
Are there any comments or any questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
228-24, amend 2024 budget to implement the Outward Mindset Project using funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA.
Any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
229-24, amend Chautauqua County Department of Mental Hygiene and Social Services 2024 budget to include New York State Rental Supplement SRP program allocations.
Any questions, any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
230-24, authorizing 2025 levy of participants' share of Chautauqua County self-insurance plan workers' compensation costs.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Carried.
231-24, financial management policy for the County of Chautauqua.
Are there any questions or discussion on the resolution? Legislator Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Long ago and far away, as a high school debater and a college debater, I learned the general principle that the one who advocates for a change has the burden of proof. It appears that the financial management policy for our county has worked rather well for a long time, with bipartisan agreement that the fund balance, the unallocated fund balance, should be no less than 5% nor more than 15. The range has been, I think, a bipartisan agreement for quite a long time. Looking at this resolution, and I guess so far this month, if I understand it, audit and control, the only committee this came in front of, I guess. There were only 2 committee members, and the chairman made a quorum, maybe. So 3 out of 19 in person had something to do with at least looking at this. A major change in this policy is to say, introduce the concept of a target fund balance of 12.5%. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds on this resolution. Also changes for some reason the definition of what the size of the county budget or county revenues is. Let's just say that our county budget's approaching $300 million. Every 1% of that toward fund balance is a $3 million decision. So to introduce the concept of a target and to pick an unusual number like 12.5%, the burden of proof is on whoever wants to make this change. Who wants to go from a range of 5 to 15% and have this legislature agree that a target is 12.5%? Each percent, again, being roughly $3 million extra of taxpayers' money. I don't see the need for this, and it's not up to me to defend the status quo. It's up to whoever wants this change to explain why we need a target. What problem has there been? If the system isn't broken, why would we be fixing it? And how you say the range is 5 to 15, but your target is 12.5 is an interesting decision. Obviously, I've heard nothing. I assume that the other 16 at least who weren't at a meeting don't know where the 12.5 came from. So there's a tendency in government to view our fund balance or slush fund, whatever you want to call it, there's a tendency to view it as our money, the county's money. It isn't. It's the taxpayers' money. We make a sober judgment, hopefully, of how much of the taxpayers' money we're going to hold in reserve. Some of you may know just from life experience and reading the newspapers that once in a while the state comptroller has come in and slapped a school district, that a school district has built up such huge reserves so that they can go to their residents and say, we can build a new gym and a new track and a new auditorium, and it's not going to cost you a nickel between the state aid and the reserves we build up. Even school districts get the comptroller's attention when their reserves are too big. So this resolution, the change in the resolution, has not been justified, and the burden of proof is on those that want to change it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other questions, other comments on the resolution? Legislator Bankowski.
Yes, sir. And just thinking, last year we were in this discussion about lowering the tax levy by $1 million so we could lower our slush fund, so to speak, and give the taxpayers some of their money back. I think now would be a good time, instead of having a target rate of 12.5, make it 11.5, and now we're doing some good work for our taxpayers.
Thank you. Other comments? Other questions? Legislator Parker.
I'd like to make a motion to table this for pending a more thorough explanation to all the legislators. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second? Second by legislator Bankowski. There's no discussion on a motion to table, so would the clerk please call the roll on the motion to table Resolution 231-24?
Mr. Anthony. Mr. Bankowski. Mr. Buchanan. Mrs. Gustafson. Mr. Harmon. Mr. Heiser. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Landy. Mr. Larson. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nebel. Ms. Parker. Mr. Pavlak. Mr. Penhallow. Mr. Proctor. Mr. Scudder. Ms. Vanstrom. Mr. Wilfong. Chairman Shagnon.
No.
Okay, there are 6 yes votes and 13 no votes. The motion to table fails.
Okay, then on with discussion and questions regarding Resolution 231-24. Other questions or comments on the resolution? Legislator Pavlak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do get a budget book every year, and I guess I don't ever see a slush fund account in there. But we do have a general fund, and a general fund is very important for a county to have and maintain. You know, in uncertain times, different things may come up or arise that are unexpected, and you need the funds to be able to cover those. We try to do a conservative budget as far as our sales tax projections and other revenues that the county is going to expect. Sometimes we have some shortfalls, and we have to utilize the general fund to help cover those. There's possibilities that come up in an emergent situation that they need to be utilized. I think that setting a target is okay. Agreed. What target can you pick? I think the point of this target is to try to keep it at a fair amount, that we're not at the top of the spectrum. We don't want to have a large general fund, and we don't want to have a small general fund. What is correct? Well, that will be debated for the as long as we have a general fund, I think. I think that a fair amount of 12.5% is okay in consensus with some of our unexpected expenditures that come up throughout the year. So I'm okay with it.
Thank you. Legislator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, there are lots of obscure titles of things in the county budget that no taxpayer should be called upon to understand. Why do I use the term slush fund? Because it is. It means what it is. A few weeks ago, the county informed me that our current unobligated fund balance is around 45 or 46 million. That money can be used for anything that this legislature votes. It's not a reserve fund for roads or bridges. It's not a reserve fund for our buildings. It's not a reserve fund for building a new jail someday. It's a slush fund because we can use it for anything. We could use it to, not that anybody in this legislature would ever do that, but we could raise our pay by 67% and pay for it out of the fund balance, unallocated fund balance. There's not a citizen out there that would understand what we're talking about You tell them we got 37 or $45 million in a slush fund, they get the idea that that's money we can use any way we see fit. That's why I use the term slush fund along with unobligated fund balance or unallocated fund balance or whatever. Secondly, with all due respect to the other 17 legislators here tonight, I guess, do we have one absent, Madam Clerk?
Not anymore, Mr.
We're all here?
Mr. Johnson is here.
All right. With all due respect to the other 18 legislators here tonight, I don't think any of them know where this 12.5% figure came from. Now, my good colleague, seatmate here, said that he thought that 12.5 might be okay. Well, that's okay, but that's not where the number came from, out of his thoughts. I still haven't had an answer from anybody on what has been wrong with our policy for many years of a fund balance of between 5 and 15%. What has been the problem? As we approach a $300 million budget, the 5% minimum is $15 million of unallocated fund balance or slush fund. I've been involved in county government. I was county attorney when 9/11 happened in New York State. New York State lost billions of dollars of revenue as a result of the terrorist attack on our financial center in Manhattan. If there ever was a time when this county was going to have to depend on fund balance to make good on its obligations, it was then. I don't remember the fund balance being significantly depleted even in the horrible aftermath of 9/11. So how much money should the fund balance be? The current policy allows for difference of opinion from one executive to the next, one legislature to the next, of somewhere between 5 and 15. Somebody's trying to tell us to pass a 12.5% target. None of us came up with that figure. You didn't have a committee of 5, or even the Republican caucus, presumably, get together and say, you know what, we think policy ought to be this. This number came from somewhere else. It's not been justified. And I would move to delete from the policy the reference to a target.
So you're making a motion to amend the resolution, the policy in the resolution, to remove any reference to a target.
Correct.
Is there a second to the motion? Legislator Parker. Discussion on the motion to amend Resolution 23124. Legislator Johnson.
Yes, sir. First, my apologies for being late. I had a little bit of a personnel scrape at the closing at the winery, so my apologies. Also for violation of dress code. But, so I am trapped to agree with my friend, the other Fred, but partly seriously and partly humorously, it chaps me to find a Democrat more fiscally conservative than I. And my experience is private sector. I am a total neophyte on public sector, but I've done a lot of big budgets on private sector. And my experience there was each department tends to have its own little cushion, and the accumulation of those cushions can add up to a whole bunch of money. And so one of my jobs was to try and squeeze all those cushions out and get them in one place, and then we would pack it on the balance sheet. But anyway, my other thought is when we get in a pinch for funds, the first place we ought to look is tightening our belt across the board, expense by expense. The next place we ought to look is having to go back to the taxpayer for money. And the very last place we should look is from an exigency fund. I won't call it a slush fund because that's pejorative. But in terms of just in the interest of fiscal discipline, cushions are good to have, but they're last resort, is I guess my comment.
Thank you. Legislator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a U.S. history and government teacher, and I think Legislator Larson already said this, that one of the things I taught was that there was no such thing as government money. It's our money. It's the people's money. And I think the fund balance is too high. And I really don't understand if the range is 5 to 15, the number that should be targeted is 10. So, yeah, and again, the 12.5%, it seems random, and I just wonder where that came from. And that's why I think it would have been a good idea to table this and to find out more about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm informed that the Director of Finance would like to speak. Thank you.
Kitty Crow, Director of Finance. I normally don't speak, but I would like to provide some clarification on the proposed changes and where they may have come from. Every year, the financial management policy, per the policy, is to be reviewed. And in this year's review, I had copies of fund balance policies from at least 11 other counties. I read through them. Most of them had very similar language to ours. There were some additional items that other counties had that I thought would be an improvement to our financial management policy, because with all things, we can make improvements from time to time. So at the last month's meeting of Audit and Control, I reviewed some of the additional items that I had gathered from these other counties and walked through those changes to language and was asked to pre-file a resolution, which I did. So I know that was in the pre-file package that went out to all the legislators for this month's meeting. There was one county that did happen to have language regarding a target, and so that was one of the suggestions from based on language from another county. So it wasn't particularly arbitrary. It was because I just happened to think that was a good idea. It's subject to, of course, the legislature's consideration, and so if that needs to be amended, it's fine. It won't. It was merely a recommendation, and that's all it was. So many of the other counties had anywhere from a 5 to 25% range. At least half of them or more had a greater than 15% as the range, and all of these other ones were based on a percentage of appropriations rather than revenues. That doesn't really change the total dollar of undesignated fund balance much, but it makes us more consistent with at least 11 other counties statewide, and that was also kind of a comparison that our auditors, when presenting our financial statements last month, they did some comps, and those comps are generally done as a percentage of appropriation. So it was that, for that reason, it was to be more consistent with how many other counties report their or track their undesignated fund balance.
Thank you, Kitty. Legislator Larson.
Ms. Crowe, so that all 19 of us are on the same wavelength, or at least the same page. 11 counties, 10 of the 11 do not reference a target. Only one had a target.
Of the ones that I saw, there was at least one. I think it was there was one.
Just
and
the one.
it happened to be language I thought that was unique, and I thought that was something worthwhile. So it was on my recommendation. I am only in a position of giving recommendations, so that's what was in there for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on the motion to amend the resolution? Legislator Larson.
Well, hope springs eternal, so I'm hoping on a bipartisan conservative fiscal approach to our taxpayers, that hearing that out of 11 counties surveyed on their financial policy, only one had the concept of a target. The other 10 use a range like we've used for a long time. I hope we can get a majority vote anyway in favor of deleting this target notion. No offense to anyone, but it just doesn't seem needed, and it didn't seem needed to 10 out of 11 other counties. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions on the motion to amend Resolution 231-24? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the motion to amend?
Mr. Anthony. Mr. Bankowski. Mr. Buchanan. Mrs. Gustafson. Mr. Harmon. Mr. Heiser. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Landy. Mr. Larson. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nebel. Ms. Parker. Mr. Pavlik. Mr. Penhallow. Mr. Proctor. Mr. Scudder. Ms. Vanstrom. Mr. Wilfong. Chairman Shagnon.
No.
Okay. There are 8 yes votes and 12 no votes. Does that just need a simple majority?
8 and 12? I don't think so. Not in a 19.
No, you're correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are 8 yes votes and 11 no votes. The motion to amend fails.
Okay, then we're back to discussing Resolution 231-24. Any other questions, comments, discussion on the resolution? Legislator Nebel.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, when I was first elected to the legislature many years ago, the fund balance at that time was below 4%. We've come a long way since then, and I think that's due to fiscally conservative Republican and Democratic legislators. The state recommends, and that's all it is a recommendation, of 5 to 15% reserve or fund balance. But if this body wants to set a target amount, I don't care. It's nothing that's written in stone. It's just, I guess it's just an objective. But look, having said that, when it comes to the actual 2025 budget, I may vote to decrease the fund balance below the 12.5%. But as I mentioned earlier, this is just a target figure. It's nothing that we absolutely have to abide by. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nebel. Mr. Legislator Nelson.
Me? Yeah. All these Swedes look alike, you know, Tom.
Did
Handsome guys, though. Yeah.
Did I mix that up again?
Yeah, sure. That's all right. As long as it ends in S-O-N or it begins with Fred, we're okay.
Legislator Larson.
The range of 5 to 15 would, in normal business law practice, arbitration, mediation, would probably often wind up at a figure of 10, split the difference. I'll get to that in a minute. I wish I don't have the printed resolution in front of me, I'm sorry, but my recollection is it puts restrictions on this legislature. If we adopt that, do you have the full resolution?
I think so.
Thanks. As I recall, it said if you want to go beyond that, reduce that target, that there were restrictions on doing that, qualifications, conditions. Anybody remember reading that?
This is where we're adjusting, but.
Yeah. A drawdown of more than 10% of the fund balance in any given year may be considered to oh, that's the whole thing. All right. Let's go back to if if we made it to 8 votes for rationality, I don't know that we're going to get to 10, but we can try. I make a motion that if you're going to, the Republican majority, although it's weakening, if the Republican majority wants to stand by a target, I move that we amend it to 10%, which is halfway between the 5 and 15. So I make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
So we have a motion to amend Resolution 231 to change the proposed target to 10%. Is there a second to the motion? Legislator Bankowski. Discussion on the motion to amend. Legislator Larson.
Put some flesh on the bones. Again, each 1% that we set as policy is roughly a $3 million decision. So the difference between 10% and the 12.5% target is roughly 2.5 times 3, $7.5 million. We have a banker here who is helping support this analysis. We've got $7.5 million is what we're talking about. Are we going to tell our taxpayers that in good times we're going to hold on to $7.5 million more of their money under the 12.5% target, or are we going to give the taxpayers the benefit of the doubt and say our target is 10% of a $300 million operation, $30 million in the unobligated fund balance should satisfy most of us that are fiscally conservative. And I was reluctant to add this to the discussion tonight, but you're forcing my hand. Mr. Chairman, as I wrestled the last couple of months of coming to grips with the amount of money our county general fund has advanced to the North Chautauqua County Water District, if our slush fund, if our unobligated fund had been in the neighborhood of $15 million instead of $37 million, do you think it would be a little less likely that the Bank of Mayville would have extended over $5 million to that water district? I think that would have been a caution light. At $37 million, $5 million doesn't seem like such a big deal. So let's compromise. Let's adopt the notion of a target, but let's put it where most mediators, most arbitrators would come down on a decision. Where do you land between 5 and 15? Usually you'll land at 10. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Legislator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we're losing sight of the big picture here, too. A fund balance of that size, to me, means that our residents are overtaxed. And I think that's something we really gotta think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Johnson.
Yes, sir, thank you. It seems to me that now that I learned this came from a review of multiple counties, and there was one county who had a target, unless there's something I'm missing, it seems like a small issue. And it's staying with 12.5% is a tilt towards more government spending of one kind or another, and I'm kind of allergic to that. So if there's not something I'm missing, I would rather signal smaller government budgets rather than big ones, lower temptations to spend rather than higher. One of the 11th commandment in business is, when business control, is thou shalt not tempt. And if you put temptation out there, sooner or later human nature will bite at it. So I would ask my fellow Republicans, if this is really an important issue, then stick with your vote. But if it's just something that came down from one other county, I would rather signal fiscal conservatism, small signal rather than fiscal generosity. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Legislator Harmon.
Yes, that figure of 12.5% is just a target, and I really believe we're wasting a whole lot of time on this. Is what I believe. So I'm in favor of the 12.5%. I hope most of my colleagues will disagree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions on the motion to amend? Legislator Parker.
I just wanted a point of information from Ms. Crow that last September, am I correct in saying that the fund balance was 37 million at last September when we were doing the budget, October?
Say off the top of my
I think it was. Well, I just, so, yeah, and so now we have 46, according to Mr. Larson, getting information from you, we have $9 million more in this fund balance. And so the percentages of, I'm assuming that a percentage of 46 million versus a percentage of 37 million is going to be greater. So every time you talk about a percent, you're talking about a larger amount of money than you were even talking about last October.
But in this case, it's talking about appropriations, so it's a percent of appropriations, which are what essentially the adopted budget is.
So what is can you clarify then what the difference is than what we used to measure last year?
The current language looks at fund balance as a percentage of revenues and then suggests that we should be in the range of 5 to 15%. What's proposed now is that that's, instead of revenues, it's a percentage of appropriations. Generally speaking, there's not a lot of difference because when we adopt a budget, our revenues and our expenditures at the end of the day are roughly the same when we adopt the budget, because our goal generally is to adopt a balanced budget, which means expenses and revenues are close. So when we have our actual results, we can say, well, what actually happened? What were the actual appropriations and the actual undesignated fund balance at the end of the year? And so that, looking at a prior year, it's looking at what the actual results were. So, but when we adopt the budget, or we have it's always a point in time figure. Yeah.
I think, but what accounts for that $9 million difference?
I don't have with me the year-end variances, but they have been reported. But yeah, at the end of the year, if we have a surplus from any number of things, we can have surplus revenue. So I believe like part of that surplus was our sales tax, excuse me, came in about $3 million more than we had budgeted. But the adjustment to fund balance every year is simply what revenues we collected, what expenses we incurred, the difference between those two numbers is what goes to fund balance. It either adds or subtracts from the fund balance.
Ultimately, the fund balance may not be as lopsided when you look at it in October. I guess my question is, why is it 46 million now? Why did you give Mr.
Because we had a surplus at the end of 2023, and so that added to the fund balance.
Okay, so I guess is my point that your a percentage of a larger number is actually representing a larger amount of money. Does that still hold true?
Yes.
Okay. That's that was just my point, that we're actually talking about a completely different amount of money.
We are, but the revenue and the expense numbers are generally pretty close. So the resulting percentage, whether we compare it to revenues or appropriations, that percentage figure is going to be pretty close. Yes, the fund balance can go up and down, and so that what that range is will change, but it has nothing to do with whether we do it as a percentage of revenue or a percentage of appropriation.
Okay, that wasn't my point. My point was, we're talking about a larger pool of money than
Yes.
last year.
So that the range will change as the fund balance, undesignated fund balance figure
Okay,
changes.
I get, that was my only point, was we're talking about more money, and the percentage represents more money. Thank you very much.
Legislator Nebel.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on Ms. Parker's question, Kitty, our sales tax this year, do you anticipate a less sales tax this year than last year? Sales taxes are down this year thus far, or not? I'm not sure.
Get her some water?
Get her a drink.
Yes, one of the, I'll just say this in general terms. It does say even in the policy reasons why you would want to have a healthy fund balance. So there's any number of things that mid-year could create a deficit situation. Our sales tax figures could be coming in less than what we budgeted right now. It's looking like we should meet our budget, but I'm not projecting a surplus at this point. There was other discussions this month on safety net that is trending up of what we budgeted. We could, there's a lot of big things that can change throughout the year that can create a deficit or a surplus situation. And the point is for us to be prepared.
Legislator Vanstrom.
These revelations and all these ideas and all these hatchings, that's what committee meetings are for. And Kitty's at all of those committee meetings available to get the numbers that we're looking for ahead of time. And I don't think this is the appropriate time to be doing that.
Legislator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of interesting comments that alleging we're wasting time. I think we've been here an hour tonight so far. And that the county legislature meeting is not the appropriate time to discuss the financial management policy for the county of Chautauqua. There was a time about 20-some years ago when the charter was changed. It was an idealistic change that saw the county legislature as setting policy. That never worked out, but that was the dream. We had an economic development committee canceled this month because there were no resolutions at the request of the executive. Well, if we were serious about setting policy, we'd still have a meeting and we'd discuss policy. We'd discuss performance of our departments and our IDA in that case. Being lectured on, Kitty goes to committee meetings and we should have resolved this matter then. The Audit and Control Committee, as I understand it, had 2 members there. The chair was there to make a quorum, as I understand it. What about the other 16 of us? When do we get a chance to ask questions and express our views? So I don't understand any of our fellow legislators that they measure their participation in this legislature in committees or in the meetings by how quick they get in their car and go home. This is not a ceremonial post.
Let's stay to the question on the floor, which is the motion.
Wasting time, the difference, I think we're still on the amendment to 10%.
The motion to amend, yes, sir.
Well, wasting time. The difference between a target of 10% and 12.5 is $7.5 million. Now, if 15 or 20 minutes of this body's time on difference of opinion or policy or philosophy about $7.5 million of taxpayers' money is too much time, I'm sorry, I don't think it is. I think this is very serious business, and we're supposed to be setting policy, not just voting on resolutions that come at the request of the county executive. We're gaining on the vote. I hope we get at least 10 that say, all right, if it's just a target, why argue about it? Let's set it at 10 and go home. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other comments, questions on the motion to amend? Legislator Gustafson.
Money. But what's happening that no one is really talking about is the fact that, number one, the county is earning interest on this money that is lessening the tax burden. And number two, if we were to have to go and borrow money for the mid-year perhaps situations that Mrs. Crow mentioned, the interest rate environment that we're in right now would be detrimental to our taxpayers. So whether we have a fund balance target of 10 or 12 and a half, we have to have a healthy fund balance in cases of emergency. It's a target, it's an erroneous number. If it's that erroneous, who cares what it is? 12.5%. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, other comments on the motion to amend Resolution 231? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony. Mr. Bankowski.
Yes.
Mr. Buchanan. Mrs. Gustafson. Mr. Herman. Mr. Heiser. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Landy. Mr. Larson. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nebel. Ms. Parker. Mr. Pavlak. Mr. Penhallow. Mr. Proctor. Mr. Scudder. Ms. Vienstrom. Mr. Wilfong. Chairman Shagnon.
No.
Okay, there are 6 yes votes and 13 no votes. The motion to amend fails.
Okay, now we're back to Resolution 231-24 as presented. Are there any other questions or comments on Resolution 231-24 as presented? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony. Mr. Bankowski. Mr. Buchanan. Mrs. Gustafson. Mr. Harmon. Mr. Heiser. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Landy. Mr. Larson. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nebel. Ms. Parker. Mr. Pavlak. Mr. Penhallow. Mr. Proctor. Mr. Scudder. Ms. Vienstrom. Mr. Wilfong. Chairman Shagnon.
Yes.
Okay. 14. Okay, there are 14 yes votes and 5 no votes. The resolution is adopted. Resolution 232-24, amend Chautauqua County purchasing policy.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
233-24, standard workday and reporting resolution.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
234-24, setting the salary for land surveyor.
Are there any comments or any questions on the resolution? Legislator Bankowski.
Chairman, at the beginning of the day, I did have some questions regarding this because I thought it was going to be a complete new hire, and that's not the case. This job duties is going to be assigned to an existing employee with a stipend for doing the land surveying, which he's qualified to do. And the amount of the stipend pretty much equals the amount of money that the county spent last year subcontracting this work out. So just want to let all my fellow peers know what that situation is.
Thank you. Legislator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be voting for this, but anytime we get a resolution that adds a position to the county payroll, it's a red flag. And so I asked some questions of our Director of Human Resources, Debbie Bukowski, and I want to thank her and her staff for getting back to me quickly with a response. And as Legislator Bankowski said, it will have a minimal impact, if any, on our budget. There's no change to the benefits since it's an existing employee. So I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony. Mr. Bankowski. Mr. Buchanan. Mrs. Gustafson. Mr. Harmon. Mr. Heiser. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Landy. Mr. Larson. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nebel. Ms. Parker. Mr. Pavlik. Mr. Penhollow. Mr. Proctor. Mr. Scudder. Ms. Vanstrom. Mr. Wilfong. Chairman Shagnon.
Yes.
There are 19 yes votes. The resolution is adopted.
Okay, and that now brings us to a proposed emergency resolution that was laid on the desks. And this would require a motion to bring it to the floor in a second. And it would require 2/3 votes to bring it to the floor for discussion. So Legislator Larson. Did I get the right son that time?
Good enough.
And you would like to?
I move that we consider this very important emergency resolution tonight.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Legislator Bankowski. Discussion on the motion to bring an emergency resolution titled Continuing and Increasing Interim Financing for North Chautauqua County Water District to the floor. Any questions? Any comments on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the proposed resolution is on the floor for discussion. Are there any comments or questions on the proposed resolution? Legislator Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For our fellow legislators, in the paragraph that says, whereas due to the delay in receipt of grant funds, the amount advanced as of August 6, 2024 is the $5,200,000. Just a point of information for all of you, that's the same figure as December 31, 2023, as reported by the State Comptroller. Mr. Chairman, $5,257,000 is a lot of money. For some months, I have been trying to get to the bottom of how much of our county's cash is tied up in the North Chautauqua County Water District. The county's use of our fund balance to finance this district was the subject of a blistering December 22, 2023 State Comptroller's audit. The Comptroller's bottom line was, in order for the county to legally provide interim financing to this district, state law requires a legislature resolution for each year that the district gets or retains county money, and that each legislature resolution only authorizes the interim financing for the fiscal year the money was advanced. The Comptroller pointed to 2017 and 2022 when millions of county general fund dollars were advanced to this district without this legislature's authorization. I reviewed the last legislature resolution, resolution number 20523, dealing with interim financing for this district. The resolution gave the county executive authority to advance a maximum of $4 million to the district, and erroneously set December 31, 2024 as the repayment date instead of December 31, 2023. How much county tax dollars has the county executive advanced to this district? As of December 31, 2023, and continuing to this month, as the resolution correctly states, this county has advanced over $5.2 million. Once I found once I found that out, as a county legislator who was in a 14-5 minority, and we saw in the last series of votes what it means to be in the minority here, I had at least three options in front of me. First, I could have sat silently by to see if the executive or the legislature minority were going to figure out that there was a big problem here. Second, I could have issued a press release calling this an illegal use of taxpayer money by the county executive in clear violation of state law. I could have asked nasty questions such as, is the county executive trying to hide something here? Or is the county executive defying the state comptroller for some reason? I could have suggested all kinds of bad motives to the county executive. Third, I could assume that the county executive and his administration simply made a mistake. Even an elected Republican official can make a mistake. I could bring this big mistake to the attention of our chairman and work with him in a bipartisan manner to fix the mistake and make the $5.2 million advance to this district comply with the state's general municipal law, Section 9A. I chose the third option. No smearing the county executive in the press, accusing him of doing something illegal. No, I chose to trust the county executive's failure to comply with the state's general municipal law and the comptroller's audit as an unfortunate mistake. Tonight, this legislature can easily fix a multi-million-dollar mistake. No muss, no fuss, no partisan attacks. The resolution uses rounds up to $5,400,000. That was acceptable to me as a co-sponsor. The principal amount that's been advanced, the chairman and I were told might need this slight upward room to get us to December 31, and that was acceptable to me. I hope that this is a 19-0 vote. The money advanced will then be authorized by this legislature, and the next state comptroller's audit will have no reason to be critical. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other questions or comments on the proposed resolution? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony. Mr. Bankowski.
Yes.
Mr. Buchanan. Mrs. Gustafson. Mr. Harmon. Mr. Heiser. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Landy. Mr. Larson. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nebel. Ms. Parker. Mr. Pavlak. Mr. Penhallow. Mr. Proctor. Mr. Scudder. Ms. Vanstrom. Mr. Wilfong. Chairman Shagnon.
Yes.
Okay, there are 18 yes votes and 1 no vote. The resolution is adopted.
And that brings us to announcements on the agenda. Are there any announcements from any of the legislators? Any legislator like to share an announcement? Legislator Wilfong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Effective tomorrow, 2/29/24, I will be stepping down as County Legislator, District 11, from the City of Jamestown. I will also be resigning from the Airport Commission, Audit Control Committee, and the Planning and Economic Development. I'd like to thank all the citizens of my district for their continued support of my many years of service. I'd like to thank Pierre Chagnon, Chuck Desarrow, and the late Jay Gould for supporting me when I was a new legislator and giving me the hard work and the guidance to actually get through 10 years of this stuff, I was a new legislator, and I was just green behind the ears, and those gentlemen helped me. And believe it or not, back in the day, it was a big deal when a Republican called a Democrat for some advice. And I like to say, my good friend Chuck Desarrow never disappointed me, and I appreciate that. I want to talk about the people of the City of Jamestown who have been behind me for many, many years. I ran for mayor and was not successful, but I still got a lot of votes, and I think I could have done a great job on that. So I just want to thank all of you, past and present legislators, as myself and my wife head to Florida. So I just want you to know, when you read the statistics again, People leaving the state are leaving the state and they're going other places. And the Wilfongs are one of them. I want to thank all of you, past and present legislators. Thank you very much. Oh, God, no. Don't do it. Don't do it. Thank you. You're embarrassing me. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone like to reject that resignation? Just raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Any other announcements for the good of the order? Legislator Penhauer.
100-year anniversary of the Casadega Volunteer Fire Department. Many festivities going on Saturday and Sunday. And they'll be printed in the Post-Journal and the Observer as well. So if you have some extra time this Labor Day weekend, 100-year anniversary of the Casadega Volunteer Fire Department.
Thank you. Legislator Harmon.
Blue Creek will be hosting, I think it's the 52nd year of the Grape Festival, second weekend in February, or September. I am way ahead of myself, I'm sorry. September, next month.
Polar bear plunge in September?
I'm there. Thank you.
There's no great February.
Legislator Larson.
I think this qualifies as an announcement. Probably every one of us got this CHQ Choose Your Own Adventure New York Relocation Guide. Mark Geis, our Economic Development Director, signed this letter today, August 28th. I don't want you to be misled. I read this publication last week, and on August 25, I notified Mr. Geis and our chair that this guide says our closest international airports. In nearby Pennsylvania, the Erie International Airport is served by 3 major airline carriers, United, Delta, and U.S. Airways, with nonstop flights to Philadelphia, Chicago, and Detroit. The only thing wrong with this new publication is U.S. Airways disappeared in 2015. United stopped serving Erie a year ago, and Delta stopped serving Erie in 2020. In addition, the only thing wrong is there are no flights to Philadelphia, there are no flights to Chicago, there are no flights to Detroit. So any of you trying to recruit people to come the other way that Dave Wilfong is going, if you invite them to come to us through the Erie Airport, please don't believe this. There are 2 flights a day, they're American, they're to Charlotte, that's it. So the chairman thanked me for catching this. Mr. Geis said that, didn't thank me, but he said that they'd changed it online. But I was a little surprised to see a cover letter dated today that didn't alert you legislators that there was a slight error in telling our would-be relocation people how they could get here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Legislator Scudder.
On behalf of Legislator Parker and myself, if you weren't in Fredonia last weekend, you missed the Farm Festival. And it was a good time, well attended, and this is an opportunity next year, last weekend, you're invited to come to the Fredonia Farm Festival in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Johnson.
Well, since we're bringing up farm festivals, I wasn't going to get commercial, but as Chamber of Commerce guy and fellow down in Westfield, that same weekend after this coming weekend, we have our second Grape and Wine Festival in Westfield, both at Moore Park and out at the Grape Discovery Center. So it's going to be a great happening. I'm bringing lots of grapes to stomp, and the fire department is bringing their 1967 Jeep to hose you off, plus all sorts of other good things, a pie eating contest, you name it. And I did go to the Fredonia Festival, and it was a happening and quite a thing. So I enjoyed it, and I recommend that for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Legislator Wilfong.
Hey, don't forget the Labor Day Festival at Bergman Park. City of Jamestown has the best fireworks at dusk. Plan to see you there.
At dusk what day?
Sunday.
Thank you.
I'm actually in the hospital.
Okay, any other announcements from any other legislators? Any other announcements? Hearing none, then we will move to the second privilege of the floor. Members of the public may comment on any subject. A member of the legislature may speak on any subject. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes, and comments representing a group shall be limited to 5 minutes. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Roxy Drakowski. I have property on Broadway Road, Bemis Point, District 8. I am in the flood zone, major flood zone. So in the past, there have been a lot of flooding and erosion to not only my property, but to the creek that goes into the lake. The years 2017, 2019, and 2021, Broadway Road saw a considerable amount of flooding. The year 2021 was the worst that I had ever seen. I ended up with wood debris, a baseball bat, a football, a soccer ball, and a lawn chair. After the water receded, my lawn had a lot of mud and gravel. John Jablonski, past executive director of the Chautauqua County Watershed Conservancy, talked to me in the summer of 2022. Then David Spann was brought forward to me from the Soil and Water Division. He looked at the property, we talked. He told me that if the project was going to go through, it wouldn't be for 2 years, 2024. An appointment was set up with the Soil and Water Division in the winter of 2023. We went through many questions. I asked a lot. They gave me a lot of valuable information. I signed the paperwork, got pictures, got photos from like a drone that showed major flooding, and my house would be included, even though it sits back. I looked at the forms, never really given it a thought that my small pieces of property would even be considered. But it was discussed by many committees, and the final decision was brought to the table. On June 5th of this year, 2024, David Spann called to let me know that the Broadway Road project was approved. I received approximately $25,000 from the Chautauqua County Bed and Breakfast tax. And I'll tell you what, it took me a while to realize that this was really happening. The project has been completed, and knowing that this will help the ecosystem and Chautauqua Lake is awesome. There were 30 applicants for this project for 2024. 10 were approved, and I was number 3. I was number 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roxy. It's nice to hear a good story. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Legislator Pavlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a legislator, sometimes you have decisions in front of you, and sometimes you wonder if you make the right one or the wrong one. Last month we had a resolution a couple months ago that had to do with a secret review for some solar panels at the airport in Dunkirk. And after voting no to that, one of my concerns was safety and hazards around an airport. Wasn't shortly after I voted no to that we did have an accident at our Jamestown facility. And I thought, you know, those pilots made it to the airport and unfortunately didn't make it to the runway and was short. And I thought, you know, why add an extra layer of hazard around an airport if an airplane can make it there and have another chance? And if these pilots had landed in a solar array, now they were able to get out of their airplane that crash landed at the airport. If they crash land into a solar array, now they've landed into an electric field. And what other hazards, you know? So It just was something that caught my eye that I was thankful that I did vote no of adding another potential hazard. We have plenty of other places that something like that could be installed at instead of creating another hazard. So that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Mr. Toto, welcome back.
Boy, I'm always the last guy. My name's Anthony Toda, and my address is 144 Clifton, Jamestown, New York. I'm making my opinions and then commenting based on media reports. Recently, a Peruvian citizen who murdered 23 people in Peru was arrested in Endicott, New York, 211 miles from Jamestown. Is Governor Kathy Hochul, along with human trafficking, going to allow mass murderers to roam around in Chautauqua County? Is Governor Hochul going to allow smash and grab crimes in Chautauqua County as Governor Newsom has allowed in California? Governor Hochul is giving job priorities to illegals while neglecting the rights of New Yorkers on public assistance to obtain jobs and live the American dream. Kathy Hochul's weaponized the New York State Department of Health to use authoritative, oppressive removal of New Yorkers from their homes in direct violation of the Fourth Amendment after our own Chautauqua County Health Department reportedly was so overwhelmed during the Omicron virus that the department asked people of Chautauqua County not to call them to report Omicron issues. Democrats are labeling Trump as a tyrant after Nancy Pelosi tore up the State of the Union address and openly tolerated the destruction of statues of our forefathers. The Biden administration has supported illegal immigration in direct violation of federal statutory law and constitutional sovereignty and created a fentanyl crisis, white slavery, inflation, and mass murder. The Biden administration has tolerated 2 wars in which hundreds of thousands of people have died, while the military-industrial complexes of both sides, Russia and our side, are getting rich. Who is the tyrant now, Biden or Trump? Kamala Harris says prices are too high when her administration created inflation simply by increasing oil prices. Kamala Harris is now calling for peace in the Middle East to pick up the Muslim American vote after watching tens of thousands of people being slaughtered in Gaza. Why didn't the Biden administration broker a peace before such slaughter of lives? Other debacles of the Biden administration include the alignment of North Korea with Russia killing Ukrainians. The weaponization of the Department of Justice has falsely accused Trump of Russian collusion, something the media publicly prosecuted him of literally for years. Trump continues to be politically persecuted and maliciously prosecuted by criminals in the Department of Justice who are bent on destroying the multi-party system in the U.S. These repeated crimes by the Department of Justice are exactly what Adolf Hitler and the German SS practiced to get a one-party Nazi system in Germany. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Seeing no one, I will entertain a motion from Legislator Anthony. Make that motion to adjourn. And a second. Legislator Penhallow. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And we're adjourned.